very famous Canadian, Jordan Peterson, who only eats red meat. Him and his daughter have taken to only eating red meat because it was something that they did by a slow process of elimination to deal with health issues. And he's had mental health and physical health issues solved by just getting away from processed food. Now he's gone to an extreme with it.
But just get this. I am absolutely with people who
you can see it. But this sort of goes to the point of what we said about the EVs and the veganism. It's the same sort of thing. But if an EV, and I've said this before, the good thing about what Elon Musk did with Tesla is he made EVs cool, which then opened up a conversation to environmental impacts of the motor industry.
Yeah. It's
been kind of hijacked a little bit, a little bit like astrology hijacks science. They they take and then they woolly it up a little bit, and then all of a sudden you start believing in star patterns and all this sort of stuff. So,
now you're going to offend those people too.
Well, no, but
the Astrological Society of the UAE,
they don't really hurt anyone, do they? Especially when they believe in it. It's the ones that don't believe in it and tell you that. But the veganism is the same. It opens up a conversation of the impact of how we create our food, and nobody wants an animal to suffer, right? But also, that's been hijacked now, and it becomes, and now, like you say, you've got car manufacturers telling us that their interiors are vegan. I've got some face wash in the shower that says vegan on it.
Yeah, me too. I've got something like that as well. Okay, what? I got some hair gel that I didn't realize was vegan.
Yeah.
And it says indestructible super 40 hours, worst hair gel I've ever owned. I mean, if I get 5 hours out of it, my hair is, I'm going, why is my hair in my face? This product usually works. And then I looked at the label because I'm thinking, what's wrong here?
Yeah.
And, all natural vegan, you could eat the stuff. I'm going, well, there's the problem.
Yeah, well, that's it, right? Because it gets forced upon you. It makes a lot of people go the opposite way of, wanting to go and eat a steak in a vegan restaurant as a sign of protest because it's been forced upon you. And I do feel like we're going that way with electric vehicles. I do feel like it's becoming a problem that it's kind of making people put superchargers on the V8 because they're just like, it's that whole, not Luddite. Luddite doesn't really fit, but the same sort of thing where people are just going the opposite way and trying to, deliberately disrupt. And I don't really know what it does for I don't think Tesla are going anywhere, particularly Tesla, and I don't think, because a lot of the Chinese manufacturers now are in partnership with a lot of the European, and
it's incredible the partnerships they've organized.
They're in a lot of partnerships now. I don't think that the Chinese, particularly because of how they have regulated or not regulated, shall we say, as strictly in the European and Western world sense, the mining practices and the steel and aluminium production and all that stuff that goes with it. Because China have such an advantage there, it makes no sense for them to stop from an economic point of view. But I don't think it's something that can really work. I mean, you look at some of the projects China are involved in now, and India as well. India is a good example. Those two countries could certainly put the infrastructure in because their existing infrastructure isn't that mature anyway.
Right.
They're still developing, so they could put the infrastructure in and they could have a charging network, and China and India could go fully electric for vehicles. They could.
Imagine if India just started with small electric engines. I mean, they already have these. A lot of them are there. And now we'll start figuring out, okay, how can we take these to a scale model with vehicles that are ultralight, yet safe, and we can now start bringing people into the market, maybe in a hybrid format. But either way, imagine the potential, because you've got 1 billion people.
Yeah.
And their aspiration is to own a vehicle. And you see that when folks come here, it's not, they don't, the aspiration is not to own a Mercedes-Benz. The aspiration is to own a Sunny or a Corolla. It's to get into the market and at least have the car that you'll never have at home.
Yeah. I think the two, that they're the sort of place, China and India, they're the two very quickly growing economies in the world that are relatively immature in terms of what they have infrastructure wise, and I think they're in a place where they can react and they can go for it. And you know what? If you can take the shift to EVs in places like China and India, where we know about air quality problems from the news, if you can adopt what for some reason people are scared of now, and kind of get it, but if you can adopt nuclear energy,
right,
so that it's effectively a non-emissions power plant that powers the electric vehicle network, and all of a sudden, the stories of Beijing and what have you having smog problems and closing airports for days because the planes can't breathe, goes away
pretty fast.
Yeah, really fast. Yeah,
I guess the issue, and maybe the UAE will be a leader in this, is what do you do with the spent fuel? And I'm curious.
Yeah,
I mean, look, there's holding pens, there's pools, there's all sorts of things that are done.
I think it's Norway where there's like it's hundreds and hundreds of meters underground, thick concrete walls, and this, that, and the other.
And maybe the UAE's got a plan like that. I don't know, but if you can come up with a way to store the stuff, you win.
Yeah,
you win.
Maybe that's why China have been to the dark side of the moon. Maybe they're sending it up there. If the moon starts glowing,
you never know. Who knows?
But it doesn't give, for the energy it provides, it doesn't give that much waste.
No.
If you do it, I don't know how you'd measure it. Let's say kilowatt to kilogram of energy to kilogram of waste. I think nuclear is far and far and far ahead of any other kind of, even an oil-powered fire station. So I think,
it's as long as you don't have a tragic failure,
which obviously Chernobyl and what was the one in Japan and so these things do. But then again, when you actually look at the one in Japan it was from the tsunami, wasn't it?
Yeah.
If you actually look at it, it wasn't that bad.
No,
it had to melt down, but it was contained. It wasn't that bad. So we've learnt lessons from it, and
absolutely.
It's how. And look, it's the same as, I think I read a statistic the other day about space travel. 1 in 19 space missions end with a fatality.
Well, I know. I mean, when you start looking at those numbers, those are not good numbers.
Was it Apollo 1 blew up on the pad, but we still got to the moon by Apollo 11 or whatever it was. There was no reason. Think of the things that we wouldn't have done if we'd have stopped.
No, it's terrifying to think that you're on a giant explosive.
You are. You're strapped to a rocket. Yeah. People tell you not to play with fireworks.
Yeah.
And then
there's a reason why.
Then there's men and women sat inside one. So, but it doesn't mean it has to stop. It just means that we're sort of we're at the forefront of it, and we're kind of pioneering a lot of the stuff, just like the people that came before us pioneered rail travel and air travel and car travel. When trains first got put on the tracks in the UK, I remember when we learned about it at school, and people believed that if they went over 25 miles an hour, that the human body would dissolve.
Wow. Okay.
So they wouldn't
heard that one.
They wouldn't let them go faster than that.
The trains are what made, the rail system is what linked Canada together. That was the Trans-Canada.
But at some point, that was new.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're it's that whole standing on the shoulders of giants thing, where we're here because they went through it.
Yeah, yeah.
All the navies typically from Ireland that went to New York and built all the stuff over there, and same in the UK.
Yeah.
Same in the UK. They came over and built all the tracks. It's just, we're only able to do what we can do now, because we can only have the argument in the UK about HS2 because train lines existed, because other people went through the stress and strain of figuring out how to do it. And it's not comfortable, but we are at that point now. And I think with nuclear power, we're going to have to sort of, it's the thing that I'd like the government to be a bit more, no, you voted us in and this is what we're doing.
I just want to throw this out to the folks at 100.3. We're basically giving you your daytime talking topics on this podcast, which you're playing in the afternoon, by the way. Thank you very much. And thank you all who are listening, by the way. It's Glenn Power. I'm James Piecowye. It's the PowerWorks podcast. These are those talking points. These are those big issues. I mean, there's lots of other stuff going on in the world, but these are some of the ones right in our backyard that you actually have an opportunity to make a choice about via how you spend and how you invest, and it could change the world.
The problem is now that, like we just talked about a few things, nuclear power, veganism, and electric cars, internal combustion engines. Nowadays, particularly with people sort of my age and younger, you kind of believe what you believe, or you accept what you accept, and then everything that you're exposed to because of how algorithms work, it's confirmation bias, and you don't get to have a conversation with. Like, I'll go home in the summer, and me and my brothers will have an argument about some. We'll have the general elections in 10 days' time in the UK.
Time. Can you imagine?
I'm from a very, very traditional one-party family.
I hate to say it. It looks like Labour is going to take
they'll absolutely tank the Conservatives, and but that's down to the fact that the Conservatives have been so bad.
Yeah.
When you actually sit and look at right, okay, the Conservatives haven't been good at all, but what are Labour going to do? And they're not going to do anything good.
Yeah.
They haven't got anything to do that's. And I'll have an argument with my family about that, and I'll have an argument with my brothers, mostly tongue in cheek, just winding them up because it's funny because they're younger than me, but about them being vegetarian or vegan. No, I haven't got a problem with it. It's great. It's fantastic. But trying to explain, I'll always tell my brother about how many bees he kills every year because he wants his almonds and his avocados from California. And it winds him up because he's doing it because he thinks it's the right thing for the planet. And then I throw one little thing, flick one little bit of corn at him to show him he's not actually doing that good of a job. And
you just talk to him about the water that it takes for those avocados in California.
Yeah, but the whole point of it is having the conversation. A lot of people don't do that now. They'll see and react to things on their phones or their laptops that are focused on them because they're the advertisers that ultimately everyone makes money from these platforms and these networks. They make money through advertising, and advertising is targeted. And if your algorithm figures out that you're a vegan female and you are a conservative, which they all know, right?
Yeah.
They all know. If it figures that out, it's not going to target an advert to you that's going to be the opposite of any of those because they know that they're not going to get any click-through.
Exactly.
Right? So,
do you ever click through any of the ads that come up on your stuff?
I've done a few. I bought a few things, actually.
Oh, okay.
But
I've never bought anything. I've clicked a couple of times because they see something. It's like, oh, I got to check this out.
Yeah, and it's smart, right? It works. Works very, very well. It's the sort of more sophisticated modern version of giving you bread when you walk into a restaurant because it makes you spend.
Buying stuff back in Canada right now, I've been doing more when we were back there. Facebook Marketplace. I don't use it here, but in Canada, very effective place to buy stuff.
Yeah,
I'm actually shocked because we've lived here 24 years. I mean, I know Facebook Marketplace exists here, but I don't know if people are using it widely.
Yeah, I think it's probably more the for sale sort of Facebook groups than the marketplace, isn't it? But I think Facebook have got plans to make that a big thing.
I can see why.
How they'll monetize it, whether they take a commission or what, I don't know. But I think it works. But if you can have a conversation with somebody about something that we've spoken about or you've heard, who holds a contrary position to you on the subject, it's not about converting someone to your way of thinking or being converted to their way of thinking. It's about being able to get on. Because if everyone argues about everything, nothing's ever going to get fixed. Yeah. Because you've got some people in the UK that went and sprayed orange paint on Stonehenge.
Yeah, what were they thinking?
As an oil protest, as a stop oil protest. I mean,
it's a historical monument, and you're defacing it. Why?
A portrait painting of King Charles that got defaced.
Yeah. Why?
What's that do?
Because you might not like it, but that doesn't mean you deface it.
It's on a reel and it's funny for a few people for 10 seconds, but instantly forgotten about. And people are going to spend money and resources fixing that anyway.
Yeah.
So you've actually cost everybody.
Sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah.
I think we need to talk more.
Yeah,
I think we're on our phones all the time. That's the problem. You sit and you see people. I see it at school all the time. I'll walk by students and say, hey, you talking to each other? It's like, what's going on? And it's, what are they doing? They're all looking at their phones.
Tell you what, that's a real pet hate of mine at the minute. When you go to a restaurant and you have to scan.
Yeah.
because you couldn't have a handheld menu during COVID. The joke that was, you've got to scan your
I want
menu.
the handheld. I always ask
bring the
for
menu back, because then you got you and your missus and your kids sat there looking at a phone, and it's like, look at that family.
Yeah.
Look at them.
Put the time into the menu, build it, make it look nice, put the details in, put some stories in.
Even if it's a chalkboard on the table.
Whatever, just do it. I'm with you. Bring that's just part of the process.
Yeah.
Passing it around, having a chat.
Yeah.
Reading what's in the things in a convenient way. And look, it's much easier to read it on paper.
Just put some sanitizer on the table if you're worried about passing germs around. Use that before and after the menu's been grabbed, and you're done.
I get we're more worried about germs, although I got to say I think we've laxed. It's how quick we've become slack.
I think the problem is, and this is a difficult one, isn't it? But I think the problem is, I think a lot of people now have seen COVID.
Yep.
Wasn't actually. It's understandable that people were frightened of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Of course it is.
You had COVID,
We've all seen the films of pandemics and stuff like that. But I think they've realised what it was all about, and it probably wasn't as bad as, there was no reason for people to get shouted at because they didn't wear a mask, and there was no reason for people to get shouted at because they didn't get vaccinated. There was no reason for all this forcing people in the army and certain officers to go and get vaccinated before they could go to work. Or I think because people have realised that, and I see it in my eldest daughter. She missed the sort of, they call it FS, foundation stage. She missed 1 and 2 because of lockdown.
So you see the difference right now for sure.
And you see that now. Because I see it in the stuff that I could do when I was 7 and 8 that she can't.
I see it with my own students who've come through university, who the first couple of years were in lockdown. I see it with faculty, new faculty who joined during lockdown, totally different.
Must be difficult for your students that do public speaking.
Yeah, it was very hard, very hard.
Like that's a big deal to not be around people.
Yeah, it was very hard, very difficult. One of the things that's it's sort of a side effect. I've got friends recently who said, "Oh, I did a rapid test," and I just have so many memories working at the university. I was getting PCRs every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
At one point, so I don't know how many PCRs I've had.
Yeah.
But the idea of putting anything in my nose, like, is going to get a rapid test? Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So you're going to get a rapid test. You're coughing. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not.
And the terrible thing about it was that for a lot of people, they were doing it because they thought they were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it was the blind leading the blind, but in a lot of cases, the people that were leading doing it, their eyes open, they knew exactly what they were doing. Like we last couple of weeks ago, I was sick with dengue. Didn't know it was dengue at the time, and first thing I did was, we've had, my wife works in a school and we've got kids at school, and it's like, there's a few COVID cases going around, just make people aware. But no, we're locking the school down like they used to. Great. So first thing I did was went to the cupboard to see if we got any of the sort of test things, and we had one, but the sachet water thing had dried out, so I didn't bother doing it. And obviously it wouldn't matter because it was dengue anyway. But I remember at the point of throwing it in the bin thinking, why didn't I even keep, because what was I going to do if it was?
Yeah.
It's not like you can go to the pharmacy and say, oh, I need that Panadol because that cures COVID, because there ain't no that cures it.
No, you've got it, what do? You're going to isolate yourself at home for 5 days. You're going to take your paracetamol.
But are you?
Well, that's the thing. It's a flu. Now there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, keep hydrated. Do your best.
Yeah. And I feel like this sort of does link to everything we've been talking about, where with COVID, everyone's eyes are open now and they realise actually we've messed up a bit with our reaction there. There's hundreds of restaurant chains that have closed and failed, and there's schools and nurseries that have closed and failed, and there's massive, countless amounts of businesses and individuals that lost their livelihoods and this sort of stuff.
We've changed the way of work. Not so much here. The UAE, everyone's back at work, but you go to Canada, you go to Europe, you go to England, people are still working from home.
Yeah.
I mean, they're fighting to not go back to work.
My football club in the UK, Man United, has just been bought out by, not bought out, but they've sold 25% of the shares in it to a British billionaire called Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And he owns Ineos. So the guys that make the Grenadier Defender-looking car, and they make the money in chemicals, and they've got oil and energy and all sorts of stuff. They've just told everyone that Man United that come back to work, take your bonus early, or leave. Because you need to have an environment and you need to have a culture. And that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, we couldn't do what we do from home. We can't. That's it. But although you can educate from home, and we talked about it at the time about how the implications of this are, well, that means you could run a class for
See, this
a
bugs me.
group in Africa.
Yeah, but this is what bothers me now. And so in around the world, things go rough. Education, we're pivoting back online. You look, I'm an educator.
Yeah.
I design my class to be taught in person.
Yeah.
And when we suddenly say, okay, tomorrow it's online, well, I don't have all my stuff at home so that I can do it. I haven't organized my work so that it can be done independently.
No.
And it's just this, well, you can teach anyway, and you can just sort of move instantly. It's like, that's like telling the electric company, okay, now you guys are all working from home and people are going to be sending stuff to your home.
Yeah.
Make sure you're online.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, schools need to have, and education systems need to have a plan, and they need to have a curriculum designed so that you can just dump into it, and you've loaded the content, you've got the videos, and you've got the online materials, and you have it ready. But to think that I, as a teacher, can just pivot what I'm doing today, tomorrow online is totally
I don't see how what
thinking.
particularly what you teach, I don't see how what you teach can be taught. But like the example of my
grade school, I think it's even worse.
The example of my eldest daughter is that we've had the floods a couple of months ago, so they closed the schools and they did online learning. Waste of time. They might as well give them 2 days off. We used to have it in the UK when it snowed.
It's a
whatever.
Snow day, it's a rain day. Yeah.
So anyway, they're online. And the first thing the teacher will say to the class after she said good morning or whatever it was, right, turn all your microphones on mute. Yeah. Now, look, I'm from a time when school was the teacher's on the blackboard and we're sat writing what they're writing, and we're underlining titles and we're putting dates and we're copying what they've written, and then he's turning around and spot checking questions, throwing questions at us. So, okay, we were quiet, but if someone had got a problem where they couldn't read the word or they didn't know what it meant, they could put their hand up and say, sir, what's that? First thing the teacher said, and they got to say it because there's 20 kids screaming down a laptop microphone, right? So, so then my daughter will do 45 minutes to an hour of science or something, and I'll say, right, okay, what have you done? What's that then? And she's written something down, and they'll say, there's not many notes. I didn't understand what she was saying. I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
And then she's been sent away to work on her own.
Yeah. But you don't understand, and then I don't want to go back and ask.
Yeah. And then let's say that we were. And I guess it is conscientious enough. But let's say we were conscientious enough as parents to then send an email to the teacher saying, look, she didn't understand this. She's probably got that from 10 of the 20.
Yeah.
She ain't got time to respond to that.
Well, and this is the other side. You're a conscientious parent. How many parents have the time as their children are doing these lessons to interact and engage with it? Because that's why they're sending them to school, so they don't have to do that. Because otherwise now what you've got is a hybrid homeschooling system.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to homeschool, you would be homeschooling your kids. And a lot of parents think like this, which I'm not casting no dispersion on them, but it puts a whole bunch more effort now at home when you do online teaching.
I think homeschooling is very, 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 very good. I think there's a lot of positives to it. When it comes to things like what you educate people about science and things like that, to be able to work in a team, I think is important. And for the majority of people that are going to be part of a workforce, it's important to be able to collaborate and know what that means to do that. But, I think it's just a matter of, like we say, so many things from the whole COVID thing that have been exposed as that wasn't the way to go and wouldn't do that if it happened again.
Yeah.
I feel like that's hopefully where we're going to end up with the EV thing with cars. I think we might, in 10 years' time, we were hopefully at a point where we say, well,
it was a good experiment.
I understand why we did it, and it got a conversation going, but it's not really going to work for us long term, and that's why we're on hydrogen now, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or the Chinese have found oil behind the back of the moon, and that's what they've gone for, and then they can start bringing that back down.
Glad this has been a lot of fun. We've been all over the place here today.
Everywhere. Controversial.
You know what? We are striving to keep everyone informed, educated, and entertained on the PowerWorks podcast. If you're listening to us on 100.3, fire in your WhatsApps to the station. Get in touch with us, the James Casts. Google, you'll see how to get in touch with us. We're across all platforms. If you want to watch some of this, you can do that on YouTube. Just look for the James Casts. It's all there. And we'll be doing this all again really, really soon. I'm James Piecowye. He's
Glenn Power.
and this is the PowerWorks podcast.